What's up, y'all? Back with another video. This one being the Northwest Division outlooks, and I'm just gonna start off with the not reigning champions anymore, but former NBA champion Denver Nuggets. They just have another objectively bad offseason, really. And it just sucks because they've built their team such the right way, and even though they're probably like a slight overpay on a good overpay on MPJ kind of puts them in this situation, unfortunately. But you're just in another situation where you don't have the money. Where last season it was Bruce Brown being let go, this season it's KCP, and you can't replace him really. And you also they trade Reggie Jackson for, I believe it was just some seconds, which that's another. Reggie Jackson is a real rotational player, so that's another guy that just sucks to lose for nothing that immediately helps you. Even though at least he was traded, so they probably could have kept him, but I don't. I'm not a Nuggets fan necessarily. I don't know the full reasoning of him getting traded, so I'm not gonna go into that. And you don't really bring in anybody. I mean, you bring in Dario Saric, who I guess can give you some backup center minutes, but it's kind of, I don't love a Saric, Jokic, like those being your two centers and not really having one that can kind of rim protect-esque. And you bring in DaRon Holmes to probably be that backup center, really. But unfortunately, DaRon Holmes, I believe, tore his, I don't know if it was an Achilles or ACL, but DaRon Holmes is not going to play this season, which really sucks, especially because you were looking at Zeke Nnaji being another center. I don't expect DeAndre Jordan to really play at this point. Let's be real. I mean, he's there as another center, as a body if they need him. But talking real rotational, I mean, Zeke Nnaji hasn't progressed how you really want him to, and his contract is kind of big, and they were probably leveraging that for, I mean, there were some rumors about like a Westbrook trade, and it was probably going to have to be Zeke Nnaji, and maybe they get PJ Tucker back too, which is two decent players. But it's harder to trade Zeke Nnaji now without having DaRon Holmes being there as essentially his replacement. So it really just another year and another just sad time for him. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do. The starting lineup is still sort of intact. I mean, obviously they lose KCP, but I think Christian Braun can do decent bringing value in there. But they're really banking on some of these young guys, whether it's some of their rookies this season. I know they picked up a couple undrafted guys, or some of their rookies from last season, or maybe even, I don't know, Con Gillespie still on the team? I don't think he's on the team anymore. But it's like some of those young guys you've gotten recently, where it's Jalen Pickett, who they drafted last year, Julian Strawther, Hunter Tyson, where you're really just hoping they take the step, and they haven't done enough to show you that they will. So it just feels like they're in such a bad position, but that would still say they're a contender. It's just the road is going to get even harder as the West gets better. Next up, the OKC Thunder, who probably had, if not the best offseason this offseason. Best offseason this offseason, I guess. Where you trade Josh Giddey, who's borderline kind of unplayable in the playoffs. Just his lack of shooting. He's really a guy who Josh Giddey has to kind of be a point guard, kind of. And he was already having a worse season this year already. But it's hard for him to be that primary playmaker when you have a guy like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's an MVP candidate next to him, so it really limits what he can do. So on this team, you get off of him, and you bring in Alex Caruso, who's probably the perfect, I'm going to assume Alex Caruso starting. We'll talk about Isaiah Hartenstein in a second, because one of them is going to start. I'm going to assume it's going to be Caruso, where Caruso can consistently be a good three-point shooter. He's been a 40% three-point shooter last season. For his career, he's like 38-ish, I believe, or it might be 37. And another elite defender where you really don't have any holes defensively in your offensive in your starting lineup, except for kind of size, really, because I assume J-Dub still at the 4, Dort still at the 3. Like I expect to be an exact switch Giddey for Caruso out that starting lineup. And you also bring in Isaiah Hartenstein, who brings you that, as I mentioned, much needed size on a big contract. He gets paid. He's happy. He's gonna bring in some good offensive rebound, side defensive rebound, good defender, physical. But at the same time, one thing I question is OKC. One thing they really worked with is having that 5-out offense, where even if it wasn't 5 shooters, because I guess Josh Giddey wasn't really a shooter, it was 5 guys who can play on the perimeter. And Hartenstein doesn't really give you that. He did shoot a couple threes like some seasons ago, but on the Knicks, I don't think. I mean, I can't say he didn't shoot 1 3, but he wasn't shooting threes, obviously. And I don't really expect him to be back to shooting at a decent I wouldn't even say a decent volume. It was never a big volume, but a volume that's notable. So I question how their offense switches there, because I mean, I guess they had Bismack Biyombo last season, but he wasn't really playing. So it's hard. So it's not like I can just say he's just replacing those minutes. But either way, I mean, you bring in what you need, even if you do lose out on opportunity, a little bit of 5 out, but they should still be cool. And then, as I was going to mention earlier, I mean, with losing Josh Giddey, you also draft Nikola Topic, who's not going to play this season because I think he has an ACL injury, I believe. But you lose Josh Giddey, and you not only get a replacement in Alex Caruso, who fits a lot better, you bring in basically another Josh Giddey. So A+ all season. You don't lose anybody of importance. You re-sign Isaiah Joe. You re-sign Aaron Wiggins. You did everything you were supposed to, and now it starts to get real where it's like this team's the actual contender. Last year they were the 1 seed, but this year people are going to take them a lot more seriously, and if things go right, they definitely are probably the team to look at. Not the favorite in the West, but they're top 3 definitely this year. I mean, you could say they're top 3 last year, but this year they're definitely top 3. The Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, the Timberwolves are another team similar to the Nuggets where it's just their cap space situation is so bad that it's hard to really do anything. I mean, they drafted Terrence Shannon, who I'm pretty sure looks solid in Summer League so far. I haven't heard anything about Rob Dillingham Summer League. I haven't watched any of their specific Summer League games, to be honest. So I don't know exactly what's going on, if they have some guys who are really looking promising versus not. But I haven't seen anything about Rob Dillingham. I'm going to assume he hasn't played as this is being recorded. And they bring in Joe Ingles free agency, which decent rotational player, probably will replace some of the Kyle Anderson minutes. But it's just, man, once again, great job trading for Rob Dillingham getting into this draft. I mean, you leverage your future a little bit. But at the end of the day, right now, before you're going to have to break up this team because cap space gets so bad, I feel like you have to bring in guys on small contracts who can immediately be impactful. And I think Rob Dillingham can immediately give you, I mean, I don't know what the minutes will look like, but he feels like a guy who can give you 10 points off the bench, even year 1. I would like to think. But outside of that, man, it sucks that with Anthony Edwards being so young that their timeline is kind of right now, where even though he'll probably be there for the next timeline whenever they kind of reset it, they kind of have to win now. Rudy Gobert has a pretty big contract. Towns is on a super max. Ant's max would have kicked in, I think this season it kicks in, or it might have been last season. Nas Reed only has 2 more years left on his contract. You're going to have to pay him. Y'all gave Jaden McDaniels a bag with the hope for his offensive progression, which I remember Jaden McDaniels in high school was kind of an offensive guy who really progressed defensively to get to where he's at in the NBA. But it's like you haven't seen that step yet for how much money you're giving him. But at the same time, the NBA money is just kind of insane at this point. So maybe the $30 million for Jaden McDaniels isn't as bad as it sounds. But really just a team that, like, it's not a lot of big moves in the offseason. They're just trying to win right now, which you can't really expect anything else. The Trailblazers are another team who didn't really do too much. I mean, they made a deal at draft night, which I believe it was Brogdon, 14 and some seconds for Denny, or they might have got the seconds. It might have been Brogdon 14 for Denny and some seconds. I don't remember the exact details, which a solid move to get the wing you want, because there was some thought that they would get Cody Williams at 7, but they end up getting Donovan Clayton, which I question their center rotation a little bit with that, considering they already have Ayton. Robert Williams is going to be healthy, and I assume I don't really look at those 3 guys and say you can play 2 of them at once, even though Ayton has said he wants to play power forward. He said that some years ago, though. Or he said his natural position was power forward more than he wants to play. But it also puts Ayton on notice, where it's kind of, if you don't get your shit together, we're going to trade you. We don't need you. Which I guess could bring good things. But overall, I feel like you're just hoping that Scoot takes the step that you want him to take. I mean, he ended off his rookie season decently, but overall, not a good rookie year. I think he might have made all-rookie team still. I mean, might have been on second team. I don't remember exactly, but not really what you wanted from a guy who was, quote-unquote, number 1 pick in most drafts and only he went 3, but basically not only was seen as the number 2 guy in the draft, but like people thought it was a mistake that the Hornets took Brandon Miller. And I'm very surprised to not see him playing in Summer League. I mean, you see Jaime, you see Cam Whitmore, you see who else is playing in Summer League? I mean, Jabari Smith last year. Just other type guys like that where it's like either some guys who aren't coming off the best seasons or guys who had great seasons compared to expectation and they're playing in Summer League. Yet Scoot is a guy who you probably want more out of. And him not playing in Summer League just feels weird, especially considering one thing about Summer League is point guard play is kind of shallow a little bit. So at least for him to get that chemistry, especially because he needs to play, but he'll get that chemistry with a Donovan Clingan and whoever else is on their Summer League team. I can't even remember off the top of my head, I'll be honest. Get that chemistry with those type of guys where it's not only he's getting reps for himself, but he's getting better with their reps. It's weird, but you know, do what y'all do, Blazers. I'm gonna let y'all cook because maybe y'all understand what y'all doing and I don't. The Jazz are a team I feel like it's going to be that if it is a Lauri Markkanen trade coming, that's going to be their move for the offseason. Because not that they really did that much. You know, you lose Chris Dunn. He goes to the Clippers. I think Taylor Horton's just out there still. I don't know where he's at. That's two rotational guys. I mean, I'm pretty sure y'all let Kira Lewis walk as a former lottery pick who kind of just looking for an opportunity at this point. Because I think he tore his ACL or Achilles. ACL and Achilles, I don't be knowing which one people be injured, but he got injured his rookie year, so it's kind of he was looking for just a spot to play rotationally because he didn't have that in the Pelicans, and then the Jazz didn't really give him huge opportunity either. Based on what I remember, I'm gonna be real, the Jazz are probably of my lower watch teams from last season, so he might have been getting a little bit of PT. You draft Isaiah Collier at 29. I'm not gonna say perfect pick because once again your guards are kind of I don't know what you're doing with the guards. You have a lot of guards where it's like they could play. Maybe they're probably rotational. But Isaiah Collier is the pick. Don't get me wrong there. A guy that was falling in the draft. A guy that some people... He was a top guy coming into to his freshman season at USC. I said UNC, I'm tripping. And even going into the draft, I feel like there was still some teens, some early 20s. And for y'all to get him at 29 is great value for somebody who probably is going to play decent minutes his rookie year. They also get Cody Williams on the wing to be just to bring in more of a real wing, I guess. But yeah, I assume Lauri is getting traded. I assume Cody Williams is taking that starting 3 spot. Maybe John Collins gets traded too. I feel like that's all some rumors, but I don't know who really wants John Collins at this point, being real. You're also trying to move on Walker Kessler, which, I mean, once again, he was never a guy who probably had an insane ceiling, but feels weird for a guy who was, number 3 in Rookie of the Year. Didn't have a great year, too, but definitely a guy I thought was a building block that they're just willing to move on from. Kind of insane, but yeah, I mean, once again, I didn't watch the Jazz too much last season. I don't have too much to say, but looks like they're about to start the rebuild, which I think is the move. You look at the West, probably 12, maybe even 13 teams deep. The Jazz are not one of them teams. Them and the Jazz and Trailblazers are the two teams I look at that it's zero. I'm not going to say zero chance because crazy stuff happens in the NBA all the time, but it feels like a 0% chance for them to make a real, splash and make the actual playoffs and be competitive. So it's time to get off Lauri. I don't know where you send him. The Warriors are interested. There was some Pelicans interest, which I don't think you really want to bring in Ingram. So I don't know what that looks like. Probably a 3-teamer there. But yeah, that's really all I have to say for them. And that's the video. Scuba da wah.